I'd like to call us all to order. Welcome back, Commissioner J.H. Atkins. Glad to have you back, sir.
Glad to be back.
I would ask you if you would lead us in prayer, please, sir.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you again for this day and for this opportunity to serve our community. We thank you for all those blessings, and we thank you especially for your darling son. We pray and ask that the work we do tonight will be pleasing in thy sight. In his name I pray. Amen.
Amen. What do we think?
Come on, Patrick.
That's okay. Everybody stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Commission, unless I hear otherwise, I will assume the agenda for tonight meets your approval. With that said, we'll move right on to the next section called Hear the Public. This is the public's opportunity to take 3 minutes at the microphone to say whatever they wish to say. That on any item that is on the agenda for tonight.
That's right.
No takers. We'll move right along. Item 1 is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Chair will accept a motion to approve at your earliest convenience.
I move for approval of the minutes of the meeting of Monday, January 14th, 2019, as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardle. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sears. Discussion? Seeing none, Chair call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Item 2 is another nice thing for the evening, and this is the penning of Sergeant Brandon Record.
That'll be even better.
Front and center, big man, front and center.
Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Assistant Chief Doan. Tonight we're going to be recognizing Officer Record on his recent promotion. Officer Record, a little bit about Officer Record. He's a Boyle County graduate. He's also a graduate of Georgetown College with a bachelor's degree in political science. Officer Record is one of our field training officers. He's also been part of our field training advisory committee. He came to us in 2014, so he's a 5-year veteran of our agency. Done a really good job for us, done a lot of things for us this far. You think about supervision, you think about a lot of experience. Well, 5 years in police work is not a lot of experience, but Officer Record has proved in that short amount of time how valuable he is to us as an agent, as an agency. His leadership skills are beyond that of most 5-year veterans. I like to kind of put it in a sports analogy. You talk about athletes that have things that are not teachable because it's an intangible, something that you can't just teach people. Officer Record has those intangibles when it comes to police work. So we're very proud of him and what he's accomplished this far in his young career. We're moving in the right direction because of officers like Officer Record, Sergeant Record, should I say. Frontline supervision is one of the hardest jobs in police work. Frontline supervision is probably even harder because he has to report to me, but it's because that I know what kind of talent we have and what kind of talent Officer Record has, and look forward to watching him develop as a frontline supervisor for us. Now to officially pin him, his wife Nicole, please step up here. We've practiced this several times, so.
Stick him hard.
I don't have too much. It's hard placing on here on the team. I'm from here. It makes it hard to tell. My leadership skills, hopefully, he said, go from sports. A person likes to lead by example. Believe in taking care of people under you, they'll take care of you. So hopefully I can help move the department better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to make a comment that Sergeant Record was also named to the Boyle County Football Hall of Fame this week.
All right.
So
Congratulations.
he's had a big week.
Yeah.
Good job.
Our police department is definitely moving in the right direction. That's a good thing. Good thing. Now you're going to take your wife out to supper tonight, right?
She's going to take me out.
There you
Oh,
go.
there you go. That's that leadership thing you're talking about, isn't it? Got it. I got it. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Item 3 is the proclamation for Center College and their 200th anniversary. I'd like to ask all center attendees and officials to come down front and join me, please. Come on, Marshall, you lead the way, buddy. Allow me to read a proclamation, if I may. Hi, Susie. Come in here, Susie. I want you over here. No. We know. This is, come on down, y'all. Come on down. Come on, Susie. Step out here so I can see you. Okay, I got it. This is recognizing Center College in Danville, Kentucky for 200 years of leadership in higher education. And whereas Center College was conceived by a group of visionary early Danvillians, including Isaac Shelby, Revolutionary War hero, and first governor of Kentucky, Ephraim McDowell, one of the fathers of modern surgery, and James Birney, prominent abolitionist and two-time presidential candidate. And whereas the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Kentucky granted a charter to Center College 200 years ago in 1819, and whereas Center College, which opened in one building, housing 2 professors and 5 students, has grown to more than 1,400 students and 140 professors on a historic, beautiful, and modern campus. And whereas along the way, Center College has graduated 2 vice presidents of the United States of America, a chief justice and an associate justice of the United States, 13 U.S. senators, 44 U.S. representatives, 11 governors, and many more elected and appointed leaders at the national, state, and local levels. And whereas Center College graduates have excelled in commerce, the arts and sciences, education, public service, including the military, and as religious leaders. And whereas Center College today is recognized by leaders in academia and by national rankings as one of the leading liberal arts colleges in the United States. And whereas students at Center College receive a personal education with a 10-to-1 student to professor ratio and offer more than 50 majors, minors, and pre-professional and dual degree programs. And whereas Center College is a national leader in study abroad experiences, with 85% of students studying abroad at least once. And whereas Center College fields 23 varsity athletic teams that participate in the Southern Athletic Association in Division III of the NCAA. And whereas the Center College commitment guarantees that its students will study abroad, have an internship or research experience, and graduate in 4 years. And whereas Center College's Norton Center for the Arts serves as a cultural center for the entire region, featuring some of the world's leading performing artists, as well as the vice presidential debates in 2000 and 2012. And whereas Center College and the city of Danville, Kentucky have a long-standing mutually beneficial relationship extending throughout history. And whereas for 200 years, Center College has provided an exceptional liberal arts education with a proven track record of preparing students for lives of learning, leadership, and service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on this 28th day of January 2019, the City of Danville Board of Commissioners recognize Center College for 200 years of service as an institution of higher education and commends Center College for leadership and service to their students, the City of Danville, the State of Kentucky, the United States, and the world. Mr. President, thank you, sir. My pleasure. We will mount this in a more appropriate fashion. Okay. Nice to see you. Appreciate your help. You're a good man. You're welcome. Any words, John? Feel free. Hi, dear. Had to get you out there. I know who runs the show.
Stay up here, Marshall. We're not quite finished yet there, big boy. I want to say to so many of you in the room who I count as friends and neighbors, Susie and I both do, we're delighted to be a part of this community. I say often that Center College, at least, is known first and foremost by the quality of the people who teach there, the quality of the people who work there, members of the staff, and the students who choose to attend. We feel really good about what we are able to do in their lives, and each of you, through us, is a part of that. I'm just convinced all the more that the really best communities, towns, cities, nations, are going to be the ones that find ways to pull together. And that shall be our plan going forward, and we count on the City of Danville as an important partner in all that we do, and if we can ever be of assistance to you in striking something for good, please know that you can count on us. And again, in the spirit of the quality of people who I have the pleasure of working alongside of, I'm just honored to be here today. And in that, I've got Megan Milby brought up a bunch of these along. I'm going to start up here with the city council members. This is a commemorative pin in honor of our 200th year. So I'm going to start up here, and I'm going right down through there, headed towards Earl. I think I can get that far. Now, if any of you really would like one, Megan Milby can probably help you out. But I'm going to send you to her. And again, this is a commemorative way for us to remember what these pioneer people did now 200 years ago. How could they have ever known when they started Center College with 2 professors and 5, count them, 5 students, what we'd be looking at today, and most importantly, the difference that it continues to make in the lives of the young people who come our way. Thank you, Mike.
No, John, thank you. I think the understatement of the day would be that our community, as much as we love it and work to make it what it is, it wouldn't be the exceptional community it is today without a tremendous partner in the name of Center College. That's the understatement of the day.
Mayor, excuse me, if I can have one word, it's ironic.
As a Center grad, do you still owe money or something?
No, actually.
Okay.
It's ironic that on a night I've lost my voice, unfortunately. I wanted to say a couple of words about a place that gave me mine. Center is a transformational place, not only to this community, but to these United States and this world in a tremendous, impactful way. And I'm an example of the investment that they've made in student leaders across the Commonwealth and across this country. And it's a point of pride every time you drive down Main Street and see Old Center. It quickens some deep inspiration. And when I was a student there, I had the privilege of sitting in on a pre-bicentennial planning meeting some 20 years ago. And I remember at that time being in awe of the vision of the board to start planning something 20 years in advance. And that's never been lost on me. And I've appreciated that vision, not only from Center, what they've done there to their students, but what they've done to this country and this Commonwealth. And we're all the better for it. And their radical investment in the next generation is second to none. And I, for one, am very, very thankful. And I'm happy that I could say a word or two tonight, even in a strangled voice. Thank you.
This is where you get out your alumni donor card? Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure.
And Stephen, I guess you were just, what, 10, 11, 12, 13, 20 years ago?
Math wasn't his strong suit.
He said 20 years ago, right?
I think we need to see his transcript. Again, congratulations. You're welcome to stay with us, but you won't hurt our feelings should you choose to go on to bigger and better things tonight.
Mayor, I move to accept that proclamation.
Thank you, Commissioner Sears. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 4 is the appointment of the local emergency management director. And you have had that in front of you. Do I hear a motion for that position?
I move to appoint the local emergency management director. I want to call out the name, Mr. Mike Wilder.
Thank you, Commissioner Atkins.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Cardle. Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Mr.
Yes.
Wilder, I think you wanted to take a minute.
Thank you, Mayor. I humbly accept that appointment and continue to hope that we can do good things together. I think things are, again, moving in the right direction, and hopefully they're going to continue to do that. I left Sheriff Robbins right before I came down here, and he wanted me to express to the city, to law enforcement, and all first responders in the city especially, for their gratitude for yesterday morning. We had a very, very terrible situation at one time, and some of us that were responding out there had no idea what we were going to and what it could be. And it worked out well. A lot of investigation, a lot of tips and video brought some kids to justice that probably need to know what's going on in life and probably are going to pay a pretty dear price for what they did. But Deputy Dean is doing well. He was not even admitted into the hospital. He has a broken nose and a bone close to his palate they think is fractured as well, but just doing extremely well and so very lucky. But again, Sheriff Robbins wanted me to express thanks to everybody that come out, and I was in the emergency room for a couple of hours with Philip, and just the onslaught of firefighters and police officers that were on duty, that were not on duty, that came to pay their respects in that emergency room was pretty daggone gratifying. I know it was to me. But thank you very much, and that's from Sheriff Robbins.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Wilder, would you like to plug your Code Red that I hear you on the radio talking about?
Did what now? Repeat that.
Code Red.
What about it?
Do you want to
Promote it.
Always glad
Promote
to do
it.
it. Always glad to do it. We're
your
fortunate
radio
enough to have a
shows.
spot on the radio, but Code Red's a wonderful thing. We're going into a little difficult time as we speak. The next 72 hours is going to be kind of tough. We're going to have some cold weather. Probably the snow, they backed off a little, but we're going to get temperatures that we haven't had for some while, and we need to be prepared for it. We're getting prepared for it. We're activating. I talked to a lot of my shelter people today. They're kind of on an on-call basis. So we're going to have some warming centers that we will be able to open if we need to, those type of things. So we're making preparation. But Code Red, again, is a wonderful thing. And I hope that there are a lot of people that I'm talking to people that already know about it. but it's very easy to do. It's a mass notification system that we've engaged in the last little bit, and it's been wonderful. It lets us know about any severe weather, any warnings that may be, and we're getting them. The Weather Service has gotten very sophisticated, if you will, in some of the things that they can put out, and I know Chief Flug and I were down there a while back and spent the day with those people, and they're pretty passionate about what they do as well, and we're lucky to have it. But Code Red is simple. If you can get online, get on the Boyle County Fiscal Court website. There are prompts there that will direct you right through it. If you don't have access to computer, please feel free to call my office. I can register you within 2 minutes. My phone number is 859-238-1109, 238-1109. If it's later, if it's 6, 7 o'clock at night and the office is closed, feel free to call my cell. I don't mind it at all. 859-326-0569.
And that's a system that alerts the citizens when there is an emergency situation?
Yes, we have access to not only weather situations, but whatever the case may be. I have the ability with my phone, with my smartphone, that I can actually activate a Code Red message to be put out. And that's something that we haven't had up until about the last 2 or 3 months ago. We were able to get that. It's pretty nice to be able to, immediately do that. Hopefully, we don't have to use it, but again, please be safe, make plans for cold weather. That's the most important thing I can tell you. It's 54 degrees when I came down here today. It's gonna be 19 this time tomorrow.
Yeah.
So make the plans, get ready, think about things you need to do. If you've got neighbors that are in need, live by themselves, special needs people, the elderly, check on them more than once, because we don't need any type of tragedy like that. I'm sorry, Mayor, I got on my soapbox.
Thank you.
All right.
Passion's a good thing.
That's right.
And we thank you for what you do. Which, by the way, on a quarterly basis, Mike gets all first responders together and for different topics, and there's usually, 30 or 40 there at a gathering, and appreciate what you do, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Item 5 is a update on the project at BCTC. Dr. Aaron Tipton.
Oh, look at this, it comes down, and
Hey.
how nice is that? Well, Mayor Paris, commissioners, City Manager Scott, thank you for allowing us a few minutes of your time. The mayor asked me to be brief, so I will. I do have a PowerPoint presentation, so we'll move through it rather quick. While it's coming up, I will let you know that I think it's been a little over a year since I've updated the commission on where we are with the Advanced Manufacturing Center project at BCTC. If you all remember, just a quick little history, the funding that we applied for back in 2016 was through the Kentucky Work Ready Skills Initiative that allowed us to really go after some funds to help us expand our space at the college. So when we moved into the campus in 2002, we quickly realized that we had some lab space issues. So this funding allowed us to apply, and we were successful. We're one of 24 projects that were funded. As you can see, the breakdown of numbers, we were awarded, we asked for $4.8 million. The state came back to the funded 24 projects and said, we are going to fund you, but we're going to fund you at a lesser amount. So they graciously provided $2.736 million in our award. BCTC, to make up that shortfall, is contributing or has contributed $1.1 million, a little over $1.1 million. The state asked us, though, to go after a $1 million community match in order to pull that $2.736 down from the state. So I am pleased to tell you, as you can see at the number at the bottom, we are $78,000 away from our $1 million community goal. So we are so excited about that. We have been fundraising for the last year and a half, feels more like 5 years, but for the last year and a half or two. Just to kind of give you a quick update, just to remind that this center will allow us to double our capacity for skilled workers in the areas of advanced manufacturing, electrical, and industrial maintenance. Obviously, what that means for our community is increased skilled workers, increased wages for Danville and Boyle County residents, and a return on investment for Danville and Boyle County. You can kind of see, this is a slide specific to Boyle County. The average yearly enrollment of Boyle County residents at BCTC is 374. You can kind of see the breakdown of those who attend for technical, about half, and the other half for what we call gen ed or transfer. The additional space, like I said, will allow us to really increase the numbers, actually double the numbers of individuals in the 3 programs that I had mentioned. Another quick update, just to kind of give you an idea of what our county and our region is facing. Just in the Bluegrass Area Development District, over the next 5 years, there's an anticipated 800 jobs that will be open. Of course, this is across our 17-county area development district, but I can bring it down for you more locally. We did a survey of our manufacturing base and our industrial base 2 years ago, and we know that in Boyle County and our surrounding area, that in the next 3 to 5 years, there will be over 500 positions open in the areas of advanced manufacturing, electrical, industrial maintenance, those programs. Okay, so I've already gone over this. We're going to be able to double numbers, so I don't want to repeat myself. What I want to get to is the next couple slides that are super cool. Well, maybe there's one more. This is just a breakdown of income, so it kind of shows the investment that BCTC, or the impact, I should say, that BCTC has on individuals and the earnings that go up as students further their education. So you can look at the high school student graduate average annual earnings. Some with some associates or some of college, the earnings there, and then it goes up for the projected income of graduates of the Danville AMC. I can tell you that if you talk to our companies, they most students are making well above that $40,000 range. It's actually closer to between $50,000 and $55,000 a year. Okay, and this is really important. For every dollar invested in BCTC, the community can expect a return of $4.90 for every dollar that's invested in BCTC. So, you all are actually one of the first groups to get to see the renderings. We have hired an architect. It's very exciting. We're hoping to break ground once we reach the $1 million goal. This is what the center would look like. This is actually, I get to use the little red pointer here, I think. Yeah, there we go. This is coming down Lebanon Road. So you can kind of see this is the existing building right here, and this is the new AMC. There's another look at, that's from the front. That's on the interior of the campus. It's a high-tech, state-of-the-art building. It'll have, let me show you the lab space. You can kind of get a sense for what the lab space will look like. It's a high bay open area that can simulate what students see actually out in a manufacturing environment. So lots of open area. Most of the robotics equipment, you can't see it from this picture, but it's down on this end here, and all other lab equipment. So it will have 3 classrooms and 4 lab spaces. So I'm here. I have an updated donor card. I'll make this short and sweet. I'm here to ask the city for the remaining $78,000 that we need to get to the $1 million match. Here's the updated donor card. You all probably know there's some people in the room who were at the fiscal court meeting where I asked them for the same amount of money. So we are coming down the home stretch. And I also want to point out that the remaining $78,000 could be funded over a 2-year period, should the city decide.
Certainly it's worthwhile. Do I hear a motion to that effect?
I will make that motion that we fund BCTC in the amount of $78,000 to match the fiscal court.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We are in discussion.
She stated it could be over a 2-year time period, so looking at
We'll leave that.
Michelle back there with the budget.
Michelle hadn't jumped out of her chair, so it's okay. Well, certainly this is critical. all the artificial intelligence that's coming down the road. The days of working in a dirty old factory, they're over. There's just a lot of benefit to be had in a facility of this type for our community. Nobody works, I shouldn't say that. I'm on record as being keenly aware of economic development, and I think this is right the centerpiece of it.
Thank you.
If I may follow up on Commissioner Atkins, any comments from over here? Yep.
I just have one question, Dr. Tipton. You mentioned that the 78 could be split over 2 fiscal years. I guess, what is the timing requirement for meeting the pledge in order to access the grant and continue what you've already started?
Great question. If we have the commitment in the form of a pledge, maybe some type of documentation, the state will allow us to pull that 2.736 down immediately. We just have to show on paper that those are in the commitment or pledge stage.
So it'd be okay if we waited and budgeted the amount in a budget and gave it to you then, and not this fiscal year, but next fiscal year?
So July 1 would be the next fiscal year?
Yes.
Yes, so if we could do July 1 and then July 1 of the following.
Thank you.
If you want to, I'll just write you a check. Don't cash it for a while. Just show it to them.
That would be fabulous.
Just tell them you got it.
Thank you. So,
That'll be the coddle and coddle, right?
if I may say one more quick thing, I just passed the donor card out. I'm very proud of where we are with the fundraising. We have a diverse group of donors. This did not happen from just one source. There have been civic organizations, of course, the city and the county governments have stepped up. Our manufacturing partners have stepped up. We've had private citizens step up, banking institutions, industrial development authorities, the Boyle County Industrial Foundation. So again, I just want to point that out, that it's just very nice to see the community step up across the board and from multiple places.
I think the community sees the value in it. And if I may, Mayor, can I ask Erin to introduce the guest she's brought here from?
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so right here we have Dr. Laura Martin. She is over Advancement, and she is the Executive Director of the BCTC Foundation. So she has been by my side through this, and I've learned a lot about fundraising from her. And she's been the person that's kind of making sure that those pledges come in and that type of thing. So, and then my boss, Mark Manuel, he's the Vice President for Organizational Development, Advancement and Organizational Development. He's here with me, has been a huge supporter this whole time through this project. So, and then we have a couple members of our Regional Opportunity Council, Alan Turbyfield, who's been a very big supporter, Jody Lassiter. I think that's everybody, yes. So thank you.
Thank you.
So
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Chair, call the question. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion
thank you,
carries.
and I will say for the record, we have now reached our $1 million goal.
Yay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your hard work.
Nice to have you folks with us. And like Center College, should you choose to go enjoy the rest of your evening somewhere else, we understand.
I would also just make a quick comment. We'll be really impressed when this thing is built. Magistrate, who went with us up there, visit the facility in Georgetown. Yeah, and myself went to see that, and it's real impressive. And they had a really good rate of people getting employed. Might be close to 100%. Yeah.
Wow. That's great.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
They have a senior citizen program, Kevin. Retraining.
That's good.
Item 6 is the audit report for fiscal year 2017-2018. Good evening, sir.
Hi there. I'm Andy DeMoss with RFH CPAs.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you all. I'm here to present the audit for last fiscal year. You should have a copy of the audit, and then there's an additional letter there as well. And then I also put together a little summary there for you as I was making notes here this afternoon for what I was going to touch on the financial statements. Real quick, we can go over this additional letter that's on our letterhead. This is just our required communication with those charged with governance. One thing I want to point out, we have to, one of the first sections there is about new accounting standards that have been adopted. And that would be, there was a new one this year, and it was required to be in accordance with governmental accounting standards, and that's GASB number 75. And similar to the pension liabilities with CERS, there's another post-employment benefit to retirees as part of CERS for their health insurance. So I'll touch on a few things here in the report, probably a couple times, but you'll see these numbers, and it's similar to the pension liability that's on the books that had to be adopted at, I'd say, 4 or 5 years ago. So estimates in the financial statements, depreciation is always a significant estimate, and then these pension and OPEB liabilities, which is that post-employment liability, those are significant estimates. They're actuarial determined numbers that the state gives us. It's not something that Michelle's coming up with, or us as your audit firm. We're not establishing those numbers. It's the state's providing those to us. On the second page, I wanted to point out, we're required to report any material adjustments that we made to the financial statements. The first one there, as most cities do, it's a pretty complex worksheet that we go through to determine what those OPEB and pension liabilities are. So we help adjust those for pretty much every city, I think, that we work with. Those liabilities get adjusted based on those reports. And then an additional adjustment was made as part of the 2017. It was just an error in the coding of a journal entry between funds due to your all's Fund 91 that manages the cash and the due to, due froms. It was incorrectly posted to the wrong fund. So we identified that as part of our audit procedures to make sure it got into the right fund. But as far as I could tell, it was just a keying error. On page 3, you'll see this is something that we're recommending to all of our cities and agencies that receive federal funding as part of the uniform guidance, which was an update to the single audit requirements. There's additional procurement standards that need to be adopted for your federal assistance. So that needs to be implemented here soon. As I think you will have a single audit next year. You will see this year's audit, there was not a single audit. That's when you expend $750,000 in the fiscal year of federal funds. You didn't reach that threshold this year. So it's the first year in several years that you didn't have to have one. So you will have one next year, from everything I've been told.
We've already hit it.
You already hit it?
We already hit it.
With that being said, we can look at the audit report. And if you'll flip to a couple pages in, you'll see our letterhead again. And this is the independent auditor's report. It's broken into, the first page is really the main page where it represents management's responsibilities, the auditor's responsibilities, and then our opinion down at the bottom. The thing we always like to point out is these are not our financial statements as your auditing firm. We do help draft them, but they are the city's. Our responsibility as your auditor is to provide an opinion on those. So we're charged with performing procedures and to be able, sufficiently to be able to provide you an opinion. At the bottom, you'll see we believe the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. The financial position of the city, that's considered an unmodified opinion, which is the best opinion we can provide to you on your financial statements. And then the second page right after that kind of elaborates on some of this additional stuff in the report. The first paragraph there talks about there was a restatement that we had to do to get that OPEB liability on the books. So, and we can take a look at that if you'll flip to page 9. This is the city's statement of net position, and this shows, it's essentially the balance sheet for the entire city. So if you look down at the liabilities section, there's two things I'm going to point out here. The CERS net pension liability. You can see the whole city, both hazardous and non-hazardous, was $17,053,000. That was an increase. We can't show comparative numbers this year. Nobody should be able to show those because we did this OPEB liability. You wouldn't be able to show accurate numbers for the previous year. But the pension liability the previous year was 13.6. So significant increase there in the pension liability based on their actuarial determination. And then the OPEB liability was $6,130,000. So it's about a third for most cities that you're seeing there. But if you want, what we'll do is we'll go to the governmental funds balance sheet, and we can look at those, and then we can look at the proprietary funds on page 11. So if you'll flip to page 11, this is your balance sheet for your governmental funds. Your general fund cash was $11,875,000. That was a pretty significant increase, and I think that's really just due to timing of some of the projects that have been deferred into this year. The road fund had cash of $778,000. That was an increase of about $227,000. Some of that's timing. There were some projects. There was more spent in the road fund when we look at the income statement. So I think some of that's just timing as well. Excuse me, I've been having coughing fits. On the other governmental funds, you had cash of $306,000, and that was an increase of about $73,000 from the previous year. If you'll flip to the next page, on page 12, you'll see here your general fund revenues were $18.5 million. That was an increase of almost $3.5 million from the previous year. So a significant increase in those, whereas your expenditures also increased. Those were $16 million this year, and those increased about $2.8 million compared to the previous year, just for reference. The general fund also transferred over to other funds to help supplement cash flow needs, $830,000. And those went to various different funds. Overall change in the general fund was an increase in the fund balance of $3.2 million. The road fund, the revenues were pretty much in line with the previous year. There were more expenditures this year as you all paved more roads and had more projects going on there than in the years past. So those are your governmental funds. So on your proprietary funds, those start on page 13. And here you'll see, starting off with the utility fund, cash was $4,227,000. Total proprietary funds, the total assets were $82 million. That was an increase of about $6.8 million. That's over all your proprietary funds. The big increases were on your capital assets, and then your cash increased significantly. Total liabilities were $52,204,000, and that was an increase of $8.7 million. We can look at that, the detail on the liabilities. Some of that is the pensions, but some of it is also some of the bonds that were issued over the course of the year. Also new to the balance sheet on the city are capital leases as part of the enterprise lease program. Those are being considered capital leases. So you have capital assets up in your vehicles and also capital leases being shown on your balance sheet as liabilities. On page 14, which is essentially your income statement, the utility fund experienced a decrease in the net position of $561,000. Grant, I don't think that's right, my little summary here. The parking fund had a decrease of 110,000. That decrease was 226 before it had transfers coming in of 115,000. Let me look at this here. Yeah, I don't think that's. I have grants received on my little summary there of $1.2 million was received in the utility fund, and that's not accurate. But does anybody have any questions before I get into the notes to the financial statements? I know that's all kind of a quick summary, just some of the highlights, but there's a lot of information here. This report, just for reference, in the last 5 years with the pension liabilities and the OPEB liabilities, there's about 20 pages just dedicated to those. So there's, just in those two things, your report went from 50 pages to about 70 pages. It's crazy. And it's not something, like I said, that any of us are the ones that came up with that. The stormwater fund, I skipped over it, had an increase of your net position of 131,000. Your other proprietary funds are your garbage, cemetery, and museum funds. Those had a net increase of 24,000, but that was kind of supplemented by some transfers coming in of 281,000 from the general fund. So moving on, I can kind of touch on the notes, which elaborate on a lot of this information. On page 29, you can see your capital assets, what you've invested over the course of the year. The general fund added $4.4 million in new capital assets. The utility fund added $7.7 million in new assets. That's net of what was reclassified for the water treatment plant that was put in service at the beginning of the year. So that's your capital assets. On the pension and OPEB disclosures, I have on here, those are, the disclosures cover pages 30 through 41, and then there's 10 pages of supplementary schedules on those. So just some highlights on those. The state legislature sets the contribution rates for the city each fiscal year. And you'll see on pages 54, 56, 58, and 60 what those required contributions were over the last, I think, 6 years. The city's always paid those, everything that was required, and we've always tested those, make sure they're getting paid timely. But that's the city. The city has been doing your part in making those contributions. The other pension plan that the city still has is the police and firefighter pension plan. That decreased quite a bit this year. There's 8 existing participants. That liability is $928,000. And then I always like to point out, if you'll flip to page 37, how significant these estimates can be. On this page, you'll see, for example, the non-hazardous portion of your pension liability is $6.5 million. If you change the discount rate that they're assuming, one percentage down, it can drop down to $5.1 million. If you increase it, or decrease it, I'm sorry, it goes up to $8.2 million. So just changing some of these assumptions that they're using at the actuarial level can really impact what these numbers are that are being presented for the city. So I'm not saying anything about if those numbers are accurate or inaccurate. They probably know more than I do, but that they are sensitive to the big changes that are going on at the state level. As I mentioned, there's a lot in there on these, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them on those. On long-term debt, that's disclosed on pages 42 through 46. These are your bonds and your notes payable. There are 2 major bond issues in the 2017 and 2017A and 2017B. 2017A went across multiple funds and was about 8.5 million. 2017 B was 2.8 million, and it defeased previously issued bonds. And if you'll flip to the bottom of, let's see here, page 45, there's a disclosure in here that I think is pretty relevant to what you did in defeasing those bonds. You reduced future debt service by issuing these new bonds by $452,000 into the future. That's a net economic gain that they provided to us of $354,000. That's really a present value calculation, so of those savings. So great job in doing that refinance. I think it might be harder to do so moving forward as interest rates rise, though. Let's see what else here. On page 48, you'll see the capital lease activity that we talked about. There was 1.3 million in new vehicles that went under this new capital lease program, and those are being amortized, and you can see the future payments on the existing at June 30th. I know those are always going to be rotating in and out, so it's going to kind of be hard to see there, but those are the obligations as of June 30th. As I mentioned, there was a restatement on page 49, and then also on page 49, there's a subsequent event disclosed that $9 million of general obligation bonds were issued subsequent to year end. But as you all probably know that by now. So the last thing I'm going to point out on page 70 and 71 is your report on internal control over financial reporting. This is if we had any internal control findings over your financial reporting process. It's not your day-to-day transactions. It's being able to present the financial statements and these audited financial statements and what you get on a day-to-day basis. We don't have any material weaknesses. I think you're getting accurate numbers throughout the year for the most part, and what we're seeing is so we didn't have any material weaknesses to identify. Also, we didn't have any compliance findings. If we had any compliance findings with the KRS or anything like that, we would identify them here. So overall, I think it was a good audit. No major findings, and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Is there anything that you'd recommend we do differently?
We had that one recommendation that I mentioned there. We give Michelle recommendations kind of throughout the audit process, but they're normally pretty small. She talked to me, I think, when you implemented your new self-insurance, health insurance plan, accounting for that. So throughout the year, we're always available for suggestions, just to make sure it's a good best practice that you're following. So nothing specifically right now, though. No, sir.
In the next couple of months, we'll need to adopt the uniform guidance policy that will change kind of how we do procurements of federal funding.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Once again, we pay a price for Frankfurt's ways. Item 7 is the update on Parks and Rec Director advertisement. Donna, you have an update?
This is just an update. The city, with the partnership of the Parks and Recreation Board, began advertising the Parks and Recreation Director position mid-January and are accepting applications through February 15th. Advertisements were put out widely. They're in the Courier Journal, Advocate Messenger, Commonwealth, Richmond Register, and it's on several sites. It's on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Monster, Indeed. So they're on several job boards in Louisville and throughout the state. We have received 8 applications currently up to date, and we'll be sharing those with the board, the Parks and Recreation Board Chair. And then we've had a lot of inquiries also about the position in state and out of state that haven't applied, that hopefully they will. And that's all I have right now as far as an update, and if you have any questions.
Questions?
In reading the paper the other day, it made it seem like that this was a big surprise to the county, and I mean, are we together on this, or what's the situation? I know I'd like to get off on the right the right foot with the new fiscal court, and so.
Well, based upon the fact that the Parks and Recreation Board came to me and said, we would like for the city to advertise the position, and we met and revised the position, and the board approved the revisions prior to us putting it out. I thought and believe we are on the same page with the recruitment effort. And what we're doing is the flip side of what the county did for the Parks and Recreation Board last August through the end of the year. And I think that outcome was not successful, in part because of the desire of the city and the county and the Parks and Recreation Board to wait for the final report to come out before they made job offers to see if the candidates would fit the master park planning study. So probably in retrospect, that effort got started a little bit too soon, or our report was too long in coming, or somewhere in between. But ultimately, there were qualified candidates, and the chair of the Parks Board shared with me their final selection of candidates, and in my opinion, they had some good quality candidates in there, and I think they made job offers to 2 of those individuals, but so much time had elapsed that the world changes and they were no longer interested. So we're doing a start over, and we have until February 15th to receive those applications, and Ms. Speak has done a great job, in my opinion, in terms of putting those out widely. They're coming in, and we're sharing them with the chair, the current chair, just as was done by the former chair, Mr. Ross, and I think it will be up to the chair to determine the process of how those are released and considered, similar to what was done before.
Very good, thank you.
Was this a different job description that was posted to more closely align with our master plan?
There were some slight revisions, but again, I met with Mr. Jeff Thornton representing the board. We reviewed those. He brought those to the board. They approved the changes. And so I think we're all in agreement that we're seeking a well-qualified individual to serve in that capacity. I think a little bit of the uncertainty has been, maybe at the county and the city level, and maybe at the Parks and Recreation Board level, is who makes the hiring decision. And I guess we're still operating under the same operating rules because nothing has changed, and that is that the Parks and Recreation Board would be reviewing and making those decisions. And unless something changes, I guess that's the process we have in place going forward.
Again, excuse my voice. To be in concert with the master plan as I understand it, however, that may be a very good question to ask and to discuss. If one of the recommendations of implementation of the plan was that the individual actually be managed by one governmental entity as opposed to an independent board of directors that are volunteers, then that does beg the question of what is the best framework for the individual to be hired. So I think that's part of the conversation probably in making in the hiring process is, from a philosophical standpoint, how will the position be managed so as to be in concert with the master plan?
That's a very good point you've made, Mr. Dexter, and it's one that will need to be addressed, in my opinion. As you've suggested, the master study report strongly recommended that one of the two governments take the lead in terms of managing Parks and Recreation and the staff that provides those services. This is getting ahead to my city manager's report a little bit, but I believe the county and the city will hope to hold a joint meeting on February the 4th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the Intercounty Energy Building. That's next Monday, I guess, February the 4th. And I expect this to be one of the principal areas of discussion, as well as the general recommendations contained in that report. Now, you know, there have been changes too in the Parks and Recreation Board just recently. Mr. Ross has resigned from the board in his position as chair after a long and very dedicated service. There have been other changes, and so you've got some new people in the position there that haven't served previously, and that's just to say that they're not probably knowledgeable about the recommendations or the study or anything going forward. So I think we're going to have a community conversation on Monday, hopefully, and try to reach some city and county conclusion, and maybe with input from the Parks Board, as to how we want to provide Parks and Recreation services in the city and the county going forward. And that may have an impact, Stephen, as you suggested, in terms of the method of hire and reporting.
And very likely from that meeting, the result will be proposed revisions to our ordinances that govern Parks and Recreation, which I should note is not uncommon in our history of Parks and Recreation in the city and county. It seems that in my review of the historical documents that every time there was a resignation or a hire, this exercise was actually employed to determine who does the hiring, who's going to be the manager of the position, and so forth. So this is not a unique situation at all as to the history of Parks and Recreation in this community. And any suggestion that it is would just simply be for a lack of understanding of the history of what's transpired there, through no fault of anyone other than it's been a complicated department, and it's fluctuated in its management, and I think that's a fair assessment as far as its history here within the city and county.
Anything further? Seeing none, we'll move right on to item 8, and that's the committee and board vacancy report.
This is just a report. You see in your packet, you have a memo that we send out every 2 weeks about the openings that remain on the board and the committees with the city of Danville. Some of the individuals that are listed that their terms have expired wish to be reappointed, and others don't, but the city's always looking for people that are interested in serving on committees, various committees, so we would encourage anyone. There's an application that was in your packet. People can go online. They can actually fill it or print it, not fill it out online, and then get it to City Hall if they wish to serve on a committee or a board, and then it would come to you all for a recommendation. Or they can come into City Hall and fill out an application. So we'll be putting that on Facebook to say if anybody's interested, come out, put your application in. And if you want me to read the openings, I can, or to let people know.
I thought we took care of the airport board.
We haven't, but those two would be easy to take care of.
Yeah.
And reappoint next time. Or you could.
We talked about that, but the word never got to you.
Right.
Okay.
And what was that again?
Airport board.
Airport board.
So airport board is good.
Right. The airport board would be good.
For those in attendance and those viewing, there's 10 committees here, at least this time around, that are looking for some volunteers to serve on those boards. And we see this quite often. Don will circulate it to us and hope that we can go out and recruit somebody. But again, this community is heavy on volunteerism and invested in their community. So I don't know how long it took to get all these boards assembled, but there's quite a few of them that have positions that need to be filled. So we'd certainly greet anybody coming forward to do that. On that note, and you don't have to answer this, Mayor, but have you talked to the judge about our joint appointment for Parks and Rec since we just talked about it? Okay.
I have not.
Okay. Yeah. We have 2 vacancies on the Parks and Rec board, and this conversation coming up about the new director, so it might be good if they had a full board.
Anything else? Seeing not, we'll move right on. Mr. Scott, your report, please.
Yes, sir. Tonight, I wanted to bring a few matters to your attention with some action requested on a couple of those. Recall that our last meeting that I did present to you a proposed meeting calendar for the City Commission and staff dealing largely with the budget preparation process through June 30th. I've asked that you look at your personal calendars and see if you can commit as a working document agreement that these are our intended meeting dates going forward, and if so, that we informally or formally adopt that calendar.
You're requesting that we adopt that calendar?
Yes, or just by silence or acclamation, we'll just proceed in that direction. I mean, hearing no
I think it
better,
was by silence.
no other, directions, but that. Well, it's a work, we'll have meetings where no doubt a full quorum can't be in attendance, but this is what we anticipate in good faith going forwards for our knowledge and for the public, so that's the first thing. I mentioned the meeting date hopefully coming up, that if you're willing to meet on the 4th of February at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I understand that is the time that the county folks would like to meet, if it's agreeable with you, at the Intercounty Energy Building. I've taken the liberty of going ahead and reserving that meeting date, but we do have to vacate the building at 6 p.m. that evening, so we have 3 hours for that discussion. Okay. If that works, and hearing nothing to the contrary, I assume it will, just so.
I might be late, but I'll try to be there.
Okay, wonderful. The third item I wanted to mention was simply to remind the commission and the public that at our last meeting, Earl Coffey gave a good overview of the methodology used in formulating rates on our water and sewer utility systems. Talked a lot about how that compared with other city utilities in the area, and as a generalization, concluded that our utility rates compared favorably on most of those volumes of usage with neighboring utilities in other cities, and even the private sector, with the exception of the sewer system in Perryville, and that was due to some specific specialized reasons there. I know this is an issue that the county is continuing to hear from, and we are as well to a certain extent. We're committed to communicating those facts fully and completely and accurately, and we'll continue our conversations first with the elected officials in our service area, and then possibly as we make that loop and talk with those, it may be that at a future point in time, and I say maybe, perhaps you would want to have just a workshop or some general conclusion to that here at the City Commission level as just a invitation to the public to understand more fully the basis of that. So we're working on that, and I just want to let you know that. Another item of work, and some of you, maybe all of you are aware of this. I know Mr. Atkins was absent at our last meeting, but one thing I just wanted to share with you and the public, and again, you may already know this, Planning and Zoning is attempting or beginning the attempted rewrite of the complete zoning ordinance, and they had a hearing this past week on that first draft. They're breaking the work up into 2 sections, and without going into the details of those, I would say, just for your knowledge and for that of the public, that our staff is reviewing the proposed changes. We may have a few comments to make when that is taken up again at the end of February. And the second part, I guess, of the planned revisions are planned for March or April, and we'll have discussions within our community on those proposed changes as well. Ultimately, they will come back to you for your consideration and readoption, but I want to let you know that we're going to be involved in the process as we go through that process. And I guess that's just the point of information.
Anything further from Mr. Scott?
Nothing other than the fact that I would request an executive session tonight for the reasons noted to talk about pending litigation as well as personnel matters.
Okay.
So I'd like to go back. I know we're looking kind of sleepy up here, and on your number 2, the recommended schedule of meetings for this commissioner, I'm good with everything you had there, including next Monday. So if you want some confirmation from the others, I would just open the door.
Thank you.
Give it a go. That's all we can do.
Okay. Can I ask one question too? There's been some talk, and I wonder if you couldn't comment on this instead of doing it in commissioner comments about bringing our farmers market back to downtown. Would you like to comment on that for us, please?
Well, last week I had some preliminary conversation with a community member, and I expressed the fact that the city had worked to try to locate farmers market in the downtown area previously. We had them on 3rd Street, for example, and we're open to that idea. I haven't heard specifically, though, because the way the question was phrased to me prior to the fiscal court meeting may have been a little bit different than it came out of the fiscal court meeting. My understanding was what was requested of the city when I talked last week was simply closing some parking spaces. And now I understand they want the street closed on Saturday mornings, the 2nd Street area closed. So that will involve necessarily some discussions with our police and fire chiefs about safety and transportation issues. We do have a meeting scheduled this Friday to take up those conversations. And so we think it's a great idea. We just got to make sure that we can work through the details.
Okay. Anything else, sir? Seeing not, we'll move into Hear the Public. This is an opportunity for the public to have 3 minutes on any subject that is not on tonight's agenda. Ms. Brantley.
Good evening. My name is Jane Brantley, and I would just like to speak in favor of the farmers market moving downtown to the Constitution Square area. I think it would be a wonderful asset to downtown. I know it was considered in the past and met with some bumpy roads, but it seems like folks are coming together with some really creative solutions to get that done, and I'm all in favor of it and hope it works out. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Seeing not, we'll move right on into commissioner comments. Welcome back, Mr. Atkins. Where'd you go?
Thank you, sir.
Where'd you go?
Oh, I'm sorry. I took 16 students from Center along with Professor Murray to Ghana. Spent time in 3 public primary through 6th grade schools. Taught lessons for 12 days. Did some historical touring of the city, the greater Accra area. And I was talking to Ron, the city manager, today about the fact that the city of Accra has 4.2 million people in the city of greater Accra, but didn't feel like it. Felt like we were right in Danville most of the time. But to take some students there to teach and work in the schools was really an eye-opener for all of us. It's their winter time, and I think the low was 75 and the high was 95 while I was there. So I do have evidence of a 10 and a little growth, but really, really interesting to see college students at Center. 4 out of the 16 are education majors, but they were signed on to teach schools and teach content, and then to teach, expose the Ghanaian teachers to, I call them Americanized teaching standards and to Americanized strategies, and to see college kids implementing standards and strategies that were being documented and recorded and whatever else by the Ghanaian teachers was really an eye-opener, really a compliment to the quality of kids that attend Center College, but really a neat experience. And of course, my boss lady went along, and so I spent a lot of time in the marketplaces, and yeah, we really helped the economy, that's for sure. Right. But all 19 of us did, not just my wife, but to clarify that, right? But really a neat experience, and one that I look forward to the opportunity to do again. That was my second time in Ghana. I have been envisioning a trip to South Africa, and that's still on my plate. And the reason for that is that my high school senior advanced history project was on apartheid, and I got introduced to Nelson Mandela at that time. So I want to try to go from Ghana to South Africa on the next excursion, so I don't know. Really felt humbled to be able to do that.
Thank you, sir. Welcome back. Anyone else?
Commissioner Sears and I attended the City Officials Academy last week in Owensboro. That the Kentucky League of Cities provides training for us, and it's a little bit geared more towards newly elected officials, but there are seasoned veterans like us now. And I always learn something, and I always take something away from it. And I've got a lot of good ideas, and it kind of gives you a little boost of enthusiasm. And everyone else has the same issues that we do, and we're all trying to figure out how we can get through those. So
I would just like to echo Michael Alder's words of thanks to the Danville Police Department and in working out with the Sheriff's Department in making the arrests, giving the assistance. I'd like to thank Chief Robbins for his very generous comments in the media, and you know, at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat, just trying to do what we need to do. So, well done, sir.
Sure, just quickly, I'll follow up on Commissioner Terry's. She's correct that sometimes we kind of feel like we hear the same thing over, but also the times change. So there was some speakers on cybersecurity and some other things that were pretty interesting. And it's also kind of gratifying to know that after going now into our 5th year as city commissioners, that we're actually doing some of the things that they suggest should be done by city commissioners, or at least this commission and that city staff is getting it done. So it makes us feel kind of good when people are like, that's a good idea, and we're like, we're already there. So, and so just, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to comment on that we were in one of the sessions together, and it was more like a checklist for us, you know, so that was good.
Yeah. So finally, on a good note, as per usual, I started with the first meeting that way this year to kind of complement things. I'll do a shout out to the publishers of Boyle County Neighbors and Danville Living, because they're always doing good stories about the people that are our neighbors. And in this particular last issue, right here up front row, they had the dollhouse, and it was a really good article, and many other articles, but since you're here, we're going to make a point of it.
If no one else, we'll move on to item 10, payment of the bills. The chair will entertain a motion to accept the payment as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you both. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign.
I have a quick question for the new city clerk. When there's a tie on second, how do you determine? Flip the coin. Okay.
She just asked.
As Mr. Scott said, we do have a need to go into executive session for litigation and personnel reasons. Do I hear a motion that we do so?
I'd like to ask a question.
Pardon me?
I'd like to ask a question first. Did you have an executive session on the 14th of January?
Yeah?
We did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We fired you.
Do I hear a motion?
Looking for my cheat sheet.
Yeah, it was.
Do you have it?
It's in
There it
Ron's
is.
paper.
Was it personnel?
I'll
Yes.
make it. Let me make it. I'll make
It's
it.
personnel
ahead.
and
You go for it.
litigation.
And you know I'm not going to do that. So.
Go ahead, Kevin. Please.
Make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matter pursuant to KRS 618101F, and a motion to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation for which disclosure of details might compromise litigation posture pursuant to KRS 618101C.
Thank you for your motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Sears. Discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. We are in executive session. Do I hear a motion that we move back into regular session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Commissioner Cottle, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. We are in regular session. Ms. Peak?
Staff would ask that you accept the resignation of Keisha Justice from the Public Works Department, and also, I guess you can do both at the same time, accept Mitzi Wardle's resignation from county.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion by Commissioner Terry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cottle. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. I don't believe there's anything else to come before us. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Have a good evening.